phone about halfway up our stairs. And I can remember sitting on the stairs and calling the police and telling them that my mother had left me alone, and if they wanted to find me, just to go up and down the hill and look for a little girl looking out of the window with blonde hair.
This is Granny's first memory.
That's my first memory.
That's great.
I must have been about 5 years old. Oh, my mother was so much fun. She used to sing and dance around the house all day long. She'd sing when she was pushing the vacuum and cleaning, and she was just a lot of fun. My daddy was very much an introvert. At night he would sit in his chair with the card table pulled up like this and play solitaire. And Mother would get so angry. You know, we always had radio. We didn't have television, of course. There wasn't much to do in the evenings. He loved to read. He'd always read out loud when the new Saturday Post would come. He'd read us the stories in the Saturday Post. It was a Dutch colonial, white with red roof. Had 2 umbrella trees out front and a side porch, and it had a sleeping porch upstairs where we slept in the summer. I guess there were 3 bedrooms up there. Although I never slept in my room, I always slept with my sister.
Is this where you spent your whole childhood?
Yeah, until I was 12. And I was devastated when we moved. We dreamt of that house for years. I love that house, yeah.
That's what I did in Colorado.
We lost it, the house during the Depression. And moved to a little house out in the country, county. Just had 2 bedrooms. I suppose it affected my parents more, but I wasn't aware of being poor. We never went hungry. Mother made over her clothes a lot. We shopped in the basement instead of upstairs in the department stores.
That's interesting.
Mother did a lot of making over things, but she didn't really sew from scratch.
What kinds of things did you
do? I left my elementary school when we moved, and I moved to a strange high school then where I didn't know anybody. And the first half of my freshman year, we were in Lufkin, Texas, where Daddy was on business. So I started school in the middle of the year in a strange school where I didn't know a soul. And I was very shy.
That's a hard age.
Very traumatic. Very traumatic. I don't think my folks had any idea or ever thought about it being hard on me. People didn't back then. They didn't think about children, their children. Like you do. Yeah. Trying to pick a good school or...
Well, there wasn't a lot they could do about that situation.
I suppose not.
You know.
Hide and seek and Mother May I, and we played baseball, football. There were 7 little boys in my neighborhood. So I was a tomboy. I broke my nose 4 times, I know.
Wow. That's a lot. That's a lot of times.
Special friend, I guess, was Jimmy Staker next door. Their house had a big front porch with a railing all around it, and we used to play like that was a pirate ship. Oh, yes. There was a little boy, Scotty Kellogg.
Oh, yes.
His sister was my sister's best friend.
Okay.
And he was the kind of a boy that was always in trouble with the teacher. He was so full of mischief. And he was so cute. Blonde, curly hair, big blue eyes. He didn't know I was alive. I can't remember when I was a child, but when I got married, a loaf of bread was 10 cents. Eggs were a penny apiece.
Wow.
Pound of hamburger was a quarter.
That would be great, wouldn't it? Sounds good now.
I fed us on $5 a week. Gosh, I don't know, about $2,500, I think.
Did you ever buy things on credit, or did you pay for things cash?
When we got married, we were making car payments on that car. And,
What kind of car was it?
it was a Chevy, two-tone blue coupe.
What year?
Well, we got married in 41. I don't know. He had it, it was a 40 or something. We had to borrow money from the bank to buy my wedding band and get us to Jackson. We had to pay that back at $10 a month. I paid the car back at $30 a month. Ruby was making $120.
Oh, that's a lot to go for those payments then.
Yeah. Well, his best boyfriend was dating my best girlfriend. And so we started double dating. They put us together.
And how old were you?
Well, I wasn't 16 yet, I guess. We just went in a group all the time. We just kind of paired us off.
So you dated for quite a while before getting married.
Yeah. The first date I had with Rufus, I double dated with my sister and her husband. We went to a dance in Bonner Springs.
Mm-hmm.
And we sat in the rumble seat of their Buick convertible with a full moon, and he talked about this new latest theory in physics, all the way there and back.
How romantic.
But he held my hand, and I was so guilty I couldn't sleep. That seems unreal now, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We moved to Jackson, Mississippi. Rufus had taken a civil service test, or several of them. He and Rosie both taken them while they were in high school or after they graduated or something.
Rosie?
And that was his best girlfriend, his best boyfriend. His
name
name was Harold. I don't know why they called him Rosie. Because his cheeks were always red, I guess, or his nose or something. But they took these civil service tests, and his name came up on the register. And so we made arrangements to get married on Saturday, and then I went home and told my mother.
They didn't know you were married?
No, didn't know we were planning to get married. Monday morning before I went to school, I had a fellow that came and picked me up. I said, Mother, I have to tell you something. I said, Rufus and I are getting married Saturday. And then I left for school.
What did she say?
Well, she didn't, I didn't give her time to say anything. She went out to my sister's and cried all day. And then she told me, well, you don't love him, you're just friends. I was a pretty good actress.
Oh, my goodness.
But they made us put off the marriage, the wedding, until school was out. This was the end of the Depression, really. I was married in a white silk suit in a little church that we went to. And the women in the church decorated the church with flowers on their yard. And we left after church and drove down the highway and had a fried chicken dinner at a place on the highway, and then we went on to Jackson. When we came out of Alaska, we moved to Austin, Texas. We bought our first home.
How much did that cost?
That was about $8,000, I think.
Wow.
You know. Oh, it was a tiny little thing. My whole house would have fit in the living room at Whispering Pines.
But $8,000, you can't beat that.
Funny stories. He was the town bad boy. He used to sneak out of his window at night and climb over the roof and drop down and go into town with the boys. His folks were very strict. He was kicked out of high school for going to school with his pants rolled up and socks that didn't match.
Oh, you're kidding.
Oh, getting up and reciting and making the class laugh.
Cattle
He
drive.
used to help with the cattle drive when he was 9.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Herding cattle when he was 9.
And the cattle drivers like...
They put them to work. They had children, so they had help on the ranch, you know, they put them to work.
Yeah.
Really. Young buddy used to get hide in the furrows of the fields and read a book till he got caught. He loved to read, always loved to read. After he got kicked out of high school, he went to Dallas where his brother was a lawyer and read law with his brother. But he never did actually pass the law exam, never did really try to pass the law exam. But he worked kind of as a lawyer, the land commissioner for Long Bell.
Mm-hmm.
Land law. Knew a lot about law. She learned to drive, yeah, when she was 18 or something. Or maybe younger. She always did drive. When the first cars that came along, Mother was driving them.
What did you love?
Blue eyes, these long eyelashes. Long curly eyelashes. He was just so strong and so dependable and so reliable. He always was.
I think you connected with him intellectually a lot too.
Probably. After we were married, he told me he didn't think I was pretty. He married me for my mind. Every 18-year-old wants to hear that from her husband.
Not really.
Not really.
But that is a good thing.
He said he liked the way I looked, but he didn't think I was pretty. He just married me for my mind.
I think in his mind that was a compliment.
I think it what encouraged me, you know, my job to, you know, I was always proud of the fact that I learned all I learned and could do all I could do.
You did a lot together
He was
too.
never jealous of me, you know, because at the end I was the same grade he was. Well, I graduated from grade school. I had my first long dress. My grandfather had bought me, and I went to the prom, and we were playing under the tables, and I came home with it all ripped. Mother was so mad at me. Crawling on the floor under the tables in my first long dress.
What can you do? You're a kid.
I know, it was silly to put a 12-year-old in a long dress. This is the Weather Bureau in Alaska. That was my first job. Well, I was an emergency assistant in Jackson at 50 cents an hour. They got down to 3 men in the station, and Rufus got the flu. And I'd been going to work with him and knew the things to do, more or less. So they put me on the station, and they held up all the planes in Atlanta because I forgot to wet the wet bulb thermometer. They thought it was going to fall again, you know, the first night. And I got up on the instrument shed that released this balloon. You know, we had a balloon with a little lantern on it, and I had a theodolite. I got up there and released the balloon and realized I hadn't brought a flashlight, so I couldn't read the theodolite. It was dark. I couldn't read it. I sat down on the instrument shelter and cried and sent a message, "No piebald because of rain."
Oh, that's funny.
But, you know, I learned.
Well, that happens at the beginning.
And that was the only reason I got to go with Rufus up to Alaska. Because I was already trained and could go to work. Because you couldn't go up there unless you had a job.
So you did work full-time up in
Yeah.
Alaska.
I stayed home for 11 years. I had kids.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was at my sister's on Easter, and Rufus called and said that Dave Johnson's secretary was on maternity leave and he needed somebody to replace her. There was nobody on the civil service register. And I'd taken typing in high school, I guess, when I was 12 years old. So I went home and brushed up so I could pass the test. And I was just going to work for 3 months. And then they were doing testing development work there at the station, and I got interested in some of the things they were doing. And I decided, well, if I worked a year, then I'd have tenure, and I could always go to work for the government if I wanted to, if something happened to Rufus. So they made me a med technician, and I did statistical work on the instruments and things they were doing. And then they closed that station, and I moved downtown working for the Weather Bureau, but under contract to the Atomic Energy Commission doing diffusion and dispersion studies.
Wow.
And I worked on a great big old Freen calculator about like that. With a handle I pulled 8 hours a day. And my neck went bad, my shoulder, and I couldn't do that. I wasn't able to do that. And one of the fellows had taken Fortran programming at college, and he gave me his notes, and I taught myself to program. We had a computer in the basement, and I put all that on the computer in the basement. So then I became a computer person.
Wow.
And I kept threatening to quit because my back and neck were so painful. That's when I had the neck brace, the back brace, and all that. And every time I started to quit, they'd give me a promotion.
Other than the pain, did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I enjoyed the work. And although some of it was boring, but mostly I enjoyed it. And then a house got broken into one morning, and my neighbors called me from work and said they'd chased somebody out of my house, and they were sitting at my kitchen table having coffee. Well, then I got to worrying about your mother coming home from school to an empty house. So let me move out to Suitland to work, so I could get home by 3:30. And then I started working on the forecast models.
Wow.
And then I just kept getting promotions. I started off as a 3 and ended up as a 13.
What does that mean?
A GS-13, that's a grade in the government. Government has grades, and then 6 steps are within each grade. And I was at the top of the 13
Wow.
by the time I retired.
Wow.
All self-taught. Every time I was always curious about things, liked to learn. Every time I'd ask questions, I'd go to the blackboard and explain things to me, and I'd go to map discussion every morning. So I learned about meteorology and the greatest struggle was with my arthritis. Trying to work when I felt this pain. I remember one time I wanted to go on the 6 hours a day, and Rufus sat at the kitchen table and cried because he'd have to give up one of his golf clubs. So I didn't. I went on working. If I hadn't, I wouldn't be living here now.
Because you wouldn't have earned your retirement.
I wouldn't have earned my retirement pension. Would have been as big as it is anyway. I worked hard for that pension. Wasn't easy. But I loved my work. I would have gone to work if they hadn't paid me, I guess. I liked the people I worked with. They were all younger, almost young enough to be my children. I was old to be a computer programmer. I was like 42 or something when I learned to program. Everybody else was just out of college.